We're live. We should be live on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, Twitter. I'm Jim Munchback. Thanks for popping in. If you saw this stream and you decided to join, welcome aboard. We are going to be starting a lecture for the University of Houston, Personal Finance, the Bauer College of Business. Today, we're going to talk about bargaining and negotiating, and it's almost time to get started. So I'm going to do a little bit of a tech check before we get started. I think I did say it is 24 June, year of our Lord 2025. So hope you're having a good summer. If you're one of my students in personal finance and you're taking summer school, well, welcome to the next lecture. This is me doing a tech check here in the studio. This is my Friendswood studio, and it's, as you see, part of a well, it's a little messy. So that's all I'll say about that. But I do want to just jump around a little bit here, make sure everything's working. Looks like everything's working. So we will get started. We're going to talk about we're going to talk about bargaining and negotiating. Today is, since it's summer school, we have a couple of Uh, we're doing two lessons this week. We did two lessons last week, two assignments, two lectures. So I'm combining two lectures today. One is bargaining and negotiating. We'll talk about that. And then the next one is insurance. So buckle up. We're gonna do our best today to cover the essential ingredients of these two lectures. But I'll tell you, since we are just about to get started, I will tell you that your homework in Money Study Group is packed with information about both of these topics, primarily insurance. There's so much information about insurance that we will not be able to cover in this summer semester. Even in a normal semester, when I spend an entire week, an entire lecture focusing on insurance, there's just too much to cover. Insurance is one of those topics that I hate to admit, but if I were an expert in anything, it would be insurance. I have a lot of letters after my name. They're pretty much professional designations for insurance. So uh, I'm going to try to tell you a few stories today to help you understand a couple of important parts, important coverages, I should say, in your insurance. Um, my goal with insurance is just to really kind of get you to dip your foot in the pool and get to know a little bit about how insurance works so that, here's the goal, so that you become a better consumer of insurance, because insurance is one of those big topics, one of those big categories, I should say, in your budget. So it is an expense category, and it's a big one. Once you start to become a regular working American, you will find, especially as you buy a house, as you buy a car, you will find that you need a pretty good amount of insurance to protect your assets. So we'll talk a little bit about insurance. Uh, let's see. I'm gonna hit the start button. This is just the start button. And this is really where we're going to start today, bargaining and negotiating. So I'm going to get started, and I'm just going to tell you that bargaining and negotiating, this is one of the topics that I included in personal finance when I started teaching this course back in 2012. And one of the reasons that I included it is, uh, well, I'll tell you why I included it, because back in 2012, when I was teaching, we started out with Dave Ramsey's content, his curriculum for college students. And today you use Money Study Group. So that's where you get the educational content for this course. That's where you do your homework. Well, back then in 2012, you would log into a portal for Dave Ramsey, and all of the content that you would consume, it wasn't a textbook, it was Dave Ramsey's college foundations. And so Back then, when I first started teaching this course, that was a package that most of the, well, when we started this personal finance course at the Bauer College of Business, that's what we used. Dave Ramsey. It was cool. It was good stuff. It's kind of outdated now. But anyway, all that to say, that my one of my favorite lessons in the Dave Ramsey package was bargaining and negotiating, because if you watch Dave Ramsey, you will see. In fact, I'm going to play a little Dave Ramsey here in just a minute. But when you watch Dave Ramsey, at least really I knew he was really into bargaining and negotiating. So you know what? I have a clip of Dave Ramsey, but it's about an emergency fund. So I was going to play that, but I'm going to hold off. I wish I had a clip of him from his bargaining and negotiating lesson. He did a lecture, and I'm just telling you, he loves to bargain and negotiate. He's somewhat rude about it, in my opinion. But anyway, that's that's why this is part. That's how bargaining and negotiating became part of the personal finance curriculum, because it was part of the package to start with. But I believe that bargaining and negotiating is one of the things that can really move the needle for you in terms of your financial life. I have no doubt. And so, as we get started with a conversation about bargaining and negotiating, you're going to do some homework. Part of it is you're going to identify or at least understand what I believe are uh, the top issues related to bargaining and negotiating. And you're seeing those on your screen now. Those are the 7 tips that I think over the years, I think probably make sense to be at least in the top 10, but you get to decide what you think is in the top 10, top 7. But here's the thing: bargaining and negotiating is something that many people feel uncomfortable with. They feel like it's awkward. They're not good at it. And because they feel awkward about it and they're not good at it, they avoid it. And so my purpose in this week's lesson for you, in the assignment, your homework assignment, and in this time that we spend together today in this live stream, is to just encourage you to look at bargaining and negotiating as something that really can make a difference for you. That's really all I'm trying to do in this lesson, in this week. And I know you guys are super busy. You're taking summer school, for goodness sakes, and it's just not easy. We pack so much in, and I get it. But I want you just to think about bargaining and negotiating in a new way. Now, if you're one of those folks like me, like Dave Ramsey, who loves to bargain and negotiate, back in the day when I taught this in person, one of the what I would do to open this lesson is I would start out saying pretty much what I've already said, that bargaining and negotiating can really move the needle in your financial life. But then I take it to the next step and I say, I look around the room, usually the room was filled, uh, and I would ask you to consider which side of the room you are on. So, on this side of the room, my side of the room, those of us who feel really good about bargaining and negotiating, those of us who feel like, yeah, we love to bargain. We're like Dave Ramsey. We think everything is negotiable. We're not afraid to bargain and negotiate. We have pretty good skills when it comes to bargaining and negotiating. Bottom line is, we will bargain and negotiate pretty much everything. That's those of us on that side of the room. But then, folks on that side of the room, folks like my wife, Connie, don't like to bargain and negotiate. They just feel it's awkward. Maybe they're not good at it, but mostly it's just they just don't feel comfortable doing it. So they don't do it. And if you are on that side of the room, then this lesson is really for you. And if you're one of us on my side of the room, those of us who love to bargain and negotiate, our job this week is to try to encourage and, I think, just convince the folks on the other side of the room that it does make sense to pick up a few basic skills related to bargaining and negotiating, because it makes such a big difference in our life. So that's what we're going to try to do this week. If I can get all my stuff to work together well, I'm going to be pushing some buttons on this Stream Deck here, and we're going to do that. So we're then going to jump into insurance, and I'm going to try to do some insurance review for you. So let me get started with bargaining and negotiating. So let's go here and let me see if I can. First, I think I want to get rid of this. There we go. Okay, so I'm going to start with getting everything set up. Okay, so one of the things you're going to do this week, who you're seeing on the screen right there is a guy named uh, Ramit Sethi. Good guy. I'm excuse me, I met him years ago. I used to go to this conference called FinCon, financial conference, and we had all these cool speakers, and he was one of them. Great guy, young, good looking, super articulate. See, if you've never met him online or watched him, you're going to get a chance to do that this week. So I want to, somewhere in here, I have Ramit. But before I get to that, before I'm going to share a little clip of Ramit, but you're going to watch a video of him negotiating with someone else on a job interview. And it's going to be helpful. And you're going to watch that video, and then you're going to do a little homework related to that video. So that's number one for your homework this week. Um, and really, one of the key things I want you to think about this week, and what I want you to try to adopt, is this idea, this mindset that everything is negotiable. Now, if we had time, and we don't have time, but if we did have time to have a full-blown conversation about bargaining and negotiating, if we were sitting in a room together like the old days when we used to get to talk and have conversations, man, I miss that. In fact, I know I told you that I'm taking a sabbatical next year, which I'm going to spend the year doing some other projects in my business that are important, but I'm also going to be thinking about what's next for this course. And coming back into the classroom seems to be that's what the Bauer College wants to do. That's what the University of Houston wants to do in general. So, what do you want to do? I think, when we're in class together, like this lecture, this lesson, this time that we spend together could be really fun, engaging, and productive, because when we have that conversation about bargaining and negotiating, what happens is those of us on this side of the room, we will talk about all the things that we've bargained and negotiated. So this week, when you do your class collaboration, I want you just to share so what are the things you've bargained or negotiated, and I want those of you on that side of the room to be kind of reflecting on, thinking about, reading and reviewing what those of us on this side of the room, we've got story after story of things that we've bargained and negotiated. Folks on that side of the room, not so much. So that's what I'm hoping this week will be the takeaway. And it's going to be this week's class collaboration is, first of all, just tell me which side of the room are you on when it comes to bargaining and negotiating. And if you're on that side of the room, share something that you've bargained or negotiated that may seem like something that maybe folks on that side of the room did not bargain, wouldn't even think about bargaining or negotiating. Okay, so it's a general conversation. Give me your comments, summarize it, post it in Money Study Group or in the comments below. That's the easiest way. Be sure to grab a screenshot. So if you're watching on YouTube or LinkedIn, leave your comment below. That's your class collaboration, the secret class collaboration for this week. So, and this whole idea of negotiate anything, that's just something I want you to start to think about. I want you to put it on your mind. And over this summer, I want you to start thinking about some of the things you could bargain or negotiate. So, one of the things that is in my top 7 is exercising your walkaway muscle. And I just want to mention quickly, for many of us, man, every day there's like 10 things I want to buy. And I'm not very good at walking away from things I want to buy, honestly. I have the money. I feel like I deserve it. I'm very entitled. I'm very selfish. I'm basically a narcissist. Maybe not all that's true, but I do have the money and I do like to buy stuff. And so I have to, and my wife really encourages me to exercise my walkaway muscle because I don't need everything. But here's the thing. If you are in a negotiation and you have to have it, then you are going to lose every time. So in negotiation, this is a very important skill to practice, especially if you're like me and you just have to have it or you want it. You have to be able to demonstrate to the other party that you're willing to walk away. And that is a muscle that you need to develop. The discipline, the daily discipline of patience. You'll find as you start to practice negotiating and bargaining, if you're patient and if you wait, you'll find the results are much better. Comparison shopping, and I list 3 kinds of skills that comparison shopping builds. But one of them is financial strength. Okay, well, I don't even remember what the 3 specific muscles were. But here's a story. I want to tell you a story. When I started teaching this course, I taught this lesson, bargaining and negotiating. And that particular week, it happened to be a Sunday. I was I was preparing for this lecture. And at the time, we needed some furniture. I think you could say we needed it. We did need it because I had bought some furniture from an estate sale. It was new furniture, but it's a long story. They were selling furniture and they were pretty good at marketing it. It was this big event, and I went in and bought a whole new set of living room furniture, and it turned out to be the most uncomfortable, terrible furniture I'd ever owned. And so the whole time I owned it for like 3 years, I guess, I wanted to swap it out and get something new. And finally, what happened was my wife's sister called and said, "Hey, they got a new couch." And they got that couch at Ashley's Furniture. So I don't know if you're familiar with the Ashley's Furniture, but it gave me the idea to go shopping for some more furniture for our living room. And I really wanted leather. So when my wife's sister sent a picture of the couch that they got at Ashley's Furniture, I went online and I looked at what they had, and they had exactly what I wanted. It was all leather, a couch, a love seat. Actually, I wanted 2 couches because we have a big living room and I wanted them to face each other. And they had electric recliners. So leather couches and love seat with an ottoman. No ottoman, but leather furniture with electric recliners. And it was beautiful. And they had it. So I got on my Goldwing motorcycle with my wife, and we drove to Ashley's Furniture right on I-45 in Webster, Texas. So we went there, and they had exactly what we wanted, and I bought it. I didn't ask hardly any questions, except one question I asked. I asked the salesman after he was getting all the paperwork ready, and after he explained to me how the warranty worked, because they had this package where you could buy for $500 per couch, this protection in case it got punctured or damaged, right? And they had this white glove delivery service that cost, I can't remember exactly how much it cost per item, but it was per item. And there was tax and all of that. And so there's delivery, there's the warranty in case the furniture gets damaged, the cost of the furniture, and sales tax. So I asked the dude who was selling it to me, I said, "If I shop around, will I find a better deal?" And his answer made me think about this lesson, about this lecture, about this idea of bargaining and negotiating, and specifically comparison shopping. So his answer was, he started to tell me how awesome their service was. Like, they're going to deliver it the next day. I would get it the next day. and they would be there if anything happened. And if I bought the warranty, he had all these stories about how people had damaged their furniture and they responded and replaced it. And he never came close to answering my question. My question was, if I shop around, will I get a better deal? And I meant, will I save money? Because I'm assuming if I buy the warranty, you're going to respond to it. And if you don't, I have the skills to pester you until you do. But anyway, he never answered the question. So while he was doing the paperwork in the back room, I'm sitting there in Ashley's Furniture on my couch that I'm going to buy. It's going to be delivered the next day. And the total cost for that order was going to be $5,500. Okay, so that was 2 couches and a love seat. And they were going to be delivered and we were going to have a warranty. And that included shipping and sales tax and all of that. So I get online while I'm there on the couch in Ashley Furniture thinking about this lecture. And here's what I was thinking. I was thinking, I'm going to preach to these students about bargaining and negotiating, comparison shopping, and all that. And here I am buying a pretty big ticket item, and I'm doing none of that. So I felt like, okay, I have to have some integrity. So I pick up my phone, pick up my iPhone, and I Google that same exact product because now I have, the actual item. And it took me to a website. Basically, I don't know if it's a manufacturer website, but that exact same product, 2 couches and a love seat with electric, the same exact product, not like a different brand, same product. And they were going to, it was a direct. So it was, I can't remember the name of the website I went to, but basically they sold furniture directly to the consumer online. They delivered it for free. The only drawback in this whole package was I was going to have to wait about a week to get it delivered instead of the next day. Because remember, Ashley had it in stock. So I go online, get the prices. It's going to be $2,500, just over $2,500 instead of $5,500. And what it included was white glove delivery. The warranty was per order. So if I bought 10 things, I still paid one price for that warranty. They packaged it up. It was an incentive to buy more stuff. There was no sales tax because it was an online order. So, I mean, I'm like, the only drawback is I have to wait for the delivery. And I had to tell the dude, I had like $50 in my motorcycle, my Goldwing. And I gave the guy a tip and I apologized for wasting his time. But I'm like, dude, I would hate to have your job where you're here trying to sell a product that's available at a huge discount. All you got to do is a little bargaining and negotiating. So that's my story for, something I negotiated in a way, because I want you to know, if you take the time, if you just think, hey, what can I do to bargain or negotiate? Sometimes you're just bargaining, negotiating with yourself and doing the research. So that's my story and I'm sticking to it. Okay, let's see what's next. Yeah, here's just a few things I wanted to kind of highlight. So, Cash, Dave Ramsey loves cash. He tells story after story about how he uses cash to walk in and buy stuff. And cash can be a big motivator if you're doing a deal with somebody directly, I guess. Truth is, I don't think it matters that much anymore, but it's on the list. Cash is king. What I say instead of cash is king is I would say if you have purchasing power, okay? So if you go to buy a house or buy a car, if you have the capacity to buy that, they're going to know that if you're working with any institution like if you have to get a credit check or whatever to buy something, they're going to know if you have the purchasing power, and that is going to give you an advantage. Okay, that's instead of cash is king, I would say purchasing power is really important. So, for what it's worth, one of the most important techniques you can use in negotiating is just be quiet. Let silence sit there for a minute. That's hard for some of us. It's hard for me to just be quiet, but it's a very effective and powerful tool for bargaining and negotiating. Already talked a little bit about the walkaway muscle, but you got to do that. You can't be like in love with whatever it is you're trying to negotiate, because the other person will know. Timing is everything. This is one of my favorites. It's important. So I've bought tons of cars in my life, usually from dealers, but I'll buy them from individuals if I can find it. I'd really rather buy a vehicle from an individual. You probably wouldn't, because you're not, like, I was a master mechanic for years, so I know what I'm looking for when I look at a car. But here's the thing about timing, especially if you're buying a car. If you're buying a car from a dealer, that vehicle is sitting on the lot, and it's costing the dealer money to have that vehicle sit in his inventory. So at the end of the month, they want to get as much inventory off that lot as possible. At the end of the quarter, they're even more eager to get that inventory off their lot. At the end of the year, they're even more eager to get that stuff off their lot. So timing really matters. The best time to buy a vehicle is the last day of the year, typically. And I've done that many times. Just wait until the end of the year, and that's the best time to get uh, a good deal on a vehicle. But that's true about a lot of things. There's a lot of things, big ticket items, that you're going to want to buy, that if you just wait and you use good timing, it will make a big difference. So just my thoughts. These are just some of my takeaways about bargaining and negotiating. I hope they help. Yours may be different. Here's the last thing I want to know. What will you negotiate? Like, what will you negotiate? Okay, that's going to do it. Oh, I wanted to show you. See if I can get you. Hold on just a second. Uh, so this is Ramit here. I think we have a video clip.
$1,000. So Justin, here's the offer, and our salary is $50,000.
Well, first, I just want to say I'm very excited about the role. I think first and foremost, I want to be here. This is the job that I want.
Okay, I thought I had a little more there, but apparently nope. But that's the video you're going to watch. That's just a short clip from the video that's in your assignment and your homework. And you're going to watch that whole video, and you're going to write a little article about what you learned. It's a really great interview. It's a great example. Ramit does a great job of helping you understand why bargaining and negotiating in this instance, it's for a job or a promotion. And so you'll see it's a great resource. I hope that you enjoy it, but mostly I hope you learn something, because again, bargaining and negotiating isn't just about stuff. So many things in life you will negotiate. In fact, many of you over the years have shown me that you are master negotiators, because when you come to me and you ask me to make exceptions on late assignments, on the final score, like, you're pretty good, you're pretty persuasive, and you're pretty determined. And those are skills that can make you a great negotiator. So don't negotiate with me, really, because I'm not really that negotiable most of the time. But anyway, good luck with that. Good luck with your bargaining and negotiating. Good luck with this week's assignment. Okay, so now let me jump in and do a little bit on insurance. I hope you have fun with the bargaining and negotiating. Um, so now let's talk a little bit about insurance. Insurance 101. Um, by the way, before I forget, I want to show you in the um, description, you will see that there are two articles that I've linked in the description. One is this one, and it's got, yeah, I don't think that's the video that you're going to watch. That's just me in an old video uh, doing this lecture. But you will have a link in Money Study Group that takes you right to the video of Ramit teaching you how to negotiate a job. But anyway, this is just a post. It's an article that I put in. It's got your uh, instructions. These are really close to the instructions you will see in Canvas. Hopefully, I have Canvas. Yes. It took me a while to get rid of Blackboard. Do you miss Blackboard? Does anybody miss Blackboard? Canvas is so much better than Blackboard, I believe. Anyway, that's the article for bargaining and negotiating, and then we have one also for insurance. That's what we're going to talk about now. So I'm just going to take you through some insurance stuff. And I think I want to here's the thing. This is probably the most difficult, challenging moment this semester for me because where to start? There's so much to cover in insurance. I feel like, I'm just going to gloss over it, which is what I'm going to do here in the next few minutes. But I really like, I think insurance is a fascinating topic. And I think insurance is, um I'm going to just put this list up here of things that are part of this topic. And I'm going to use it as my cheat sheet while I go through this stuff really quick. So, first of all, this week in your homework assignment, you're going to get a quote for your auto insurance. Now, if you don't have a car, if you don't have car insurance, no worries. I'm sure you have a friend or a family member who does, and you can piggyback with them and you can help them get a quote for their car insurance, and you can use that in your homework assignment. Everybody's got to do this assignment. So you're going to get an auto insurance quote. I want to tell you a couple of things about how to do that. Let me just do that real quick. Now, when you go to get an auto insurance quote, you could just Google auto insurance and you could get a quote. There'll be a link there to get a quote. What happens when you do that? You give your email and name to someone, and they take your information and they'll send you a quote. And then they'll send you another quote. And then they'll send you another quote. And then they'll send you an email and a reminder email and a follow-up email and a sales email and another email and another email. And so I wouldn't do that. I wouldn't just get online and Google auto insurance quote. What I would do is go to your insurance agent and let them know, like tell them if you're on your parents' policy, for example, and your dream car is a Lexus, just tell your insurance agent you want to get a quote for this Lexus. It doesn't matter uh, that you're not going to buy the Lexus. Just get a quote. You can tell your insurance agent or the support person you're working with that you have a homework assignment, and your professor, who is an old State Farm agent, wants you to understand the coverages in your auto insurance. And the best way for me to teach you about the coverages in your auto insurance is to get a quote. Because in that quote, you're going to see all the different coverages. And that's what I want you to learn this week. Auto insurance is like the number one insurance you're going to buy. If you own a home, that's like maybe number one, and then car insurance number two. But the truth is, car insurance is more relevant to your day to day life than any other insurance typically, if you drive. If you don't drive, if you don't have a car, that's not true. But most of us living in America like to be mobile. We like to have a car. I have lots of cars. I have too many cars. I have a car, I have a truck, I have a motorhome, I have two motorcycles, and I have an RV fifth wheel. So I have two RVs, two motors. I have too much stuff for sure, but I have a lot of insurance, and I want you to understand this week what is involved in your auto insurance. So you see there that my cheat sheet, we've got collision coverage comprehensive. By the way, there is a quiz, and you're going to want to read and study a little bit. I'm not going to give you the answers to the quiz. It's not a difficult quiz, but it does require you to do a little review, a little research, a little homework in Money Study Group about these coverages. So I'll just tell you collision coverage and comprehensive coverage, they're different. But if you have a loan on your vehicle, which you will, at least in this phase of your financial planning learning, you have a loan. So you're just going to want to know that you are required to carry collision and comprehensive. So that's one thing. Deductibles that's something that changes the price of your insurance because what insurance does is it transfers risk uh, to the insurance company. And if you keep some of that risk by having a higher deductible, then in that case, you're not transferring that risk, you're keeping that risk because you've chosen a higher deductible. And because you chose a higher deductible, you have a lower premium. So that's just what a deductible is. You need to understand that. When you get a quote, you'll get to see if I have a big deductible, how much do I save on my premium? And if I have a lower deductible, how much does my premium go up? Those are the things I want you to play with a little bit as you get a quote for your car insurance. Um, and by the way, you're going to want to add your insurance to write capital to your financial plan. So you will see the data cards when you add that, and that's all part of your assignment. It's spelled out in your assignment in Canvas. It's not difficult. By now, you should be really good at navigating right capital. Although I got to say, I keep getting email notifications that people are just now starting. A few of you have just now started the process in right capital, and that means you're behind. So you're probably not going to be in that category of students that I say, by now you should be pretty comfortable with right capital, with data cards. It's really straightforward. But if you spent no time in right capital, then yeah, you're behind. So you might want to try and catch up. But anyway, back to insurance, the auto insurance for now. Uh, I want to say, I want to tell you a story because I think if you can learn how coverages work, whether it's car insurance or home insurance, if you can understand how coverages work, you will be more interested, you'll be more comfortable, you'll be a better consumer of insurance. So I told you if you have a loan, you will have to have collision and comprehensive insurance. And so I wanted to, I think uh, I've got to, oh, I'm in the wrong, hold on. Give me just a minute. I want to, so I could go here and we could talk about home insurance, how to plan. I'm not exactly sure for a hurricane. Okay, flooding. Now you're looking at a screenshot or a little video about home insurance. So I want to get to auto insurance, but home insurance is a big one. I'm just looking around right now for uh, car insurance. So I found car insurance and car insurance. Let's see. Let's see if I can get to car insurance. I'm going to, there we go. So um, these are the main types of insurance, by the way, that you're going to look at this week in your homework assignment. Let me just get rid of this real quick. Let me go here and I don't know if, no, okay. Don't have, let's see. Sorry, I'm trying to find trying to find. I'm not sure I have it. So I'm looking for, trying to make this, yeah, it's not working. Okay, forget about it. So let me just see if I can get to a different screen here. Yeah, there we go. So I want you to know, I want to just highlight that you're going to add you're going to add auto insurance, you're going to add home insurance, and you're going to add your property. So this is all spelled out in your assignment. It's very easy, simple to do. But by the end of this week, you're going to update your Right Capital financial plan so that you have your car insurance, your home insurance, and the property. You're going to have the property and the home insurance. So you'll see how to do that. And I am not going to do a data card review here because we did it in Money Study Group. So you can check that out. So this is I guess that's a, that's an earthquake right there that you're seeing. I worked Northridge earthquake in uh, Los Angeles. Homeowners insurance is very important. This is supposed to be car insurance that we're looking at, but there we go. There's auto insurance. Okay, let me get back to, hold on, somebody's knocking on my door. I'm teaching. Can I help you? Sorry about that. Let's see. Okay, we're going to go back to the list and I'm going to get rid of this. I apologize. I'm a little discombobulated at the moment. Again, this is one of the most difficult sections of the semester because we're trying to pack way too much into insurance. Uh, there's just way too much to cover. So let me just give you a story. This is a story about comprehensive coverage. So, by the way, you're going to have insurance on your car if you have a loan. Comprehensive and collision, they're both required. Obviously, liability insurance is required. But let's talk about collision and comprehensive. Do you know what those coverages do? Think about that for a minute. Feel free to leave a comment below. What is collision coverage? What is comprehensive coverage? So, first of all, collision coverage has, like all coverages, a list of things that are excluded. So, every coverage has what's called an insuring agreement. Policy is a bunch of language with a bunch of sections with a bunch of elements. But an insurance policy, a property insurance policy, like auto insurance, includes an insuring agreement. And each coverage has like an opening paragraph that says this coverage is intended to provide protection for this. And collision coverage is intended to provide coverage for your car in the event that you have an accident that is your fault. Now, if you get in an accident that's not your fault, you should first look at the other person's insurance under their liability section. If you get in an accident that's your fault and you damage my car, then you're going to want to look at your liability coverage because that's the part of your policy that's going to respond to my loss because the accident was your fault. So, again, collision protects you in the event that you destroy, damage your car in a collision. So, you could collide with a tree, you could collide with another vehicle, you could collide with a telephone pole. Any of those situations, collision would respond and pay for your car. Your deductible would apply. And your insurance would probably go up because you had an at fault accident. So that's collision coverage. Now, every coverage in every insurance policy has a list of things that are excluded. And so I hope you will grab your policy if you can, and just look under collision and see the things that are excluded. They're specifically not covered. That's what an exclusion is. So in collision, collision has a list of exclusions. And one of the first, I think the first exclusion is comprehensive. So just think about it this way. You have two different coverages that cover your car. One is collision and one is comprehensive. So now let's talk about comprehensive. This is an important coverage. And the reason I like to talk about comprehensive insurance is because a couple of things. Number one, Of all the insurance I've ever bought in my entire life, the single most valuable, uh, most likely to use, most likely to pay off coverage in the entire insurance universe is auto insurance comprehensive coverage. So think about the word comprehensive. What does that mean? You can leave a comment below. What does the word comprehensive mean? Basically, all encompassing, everything. Comprehensive is comprehensive. So, what does that mean? It means everything. So, what coverage do you think you could expect in your auto insurance policy under comprehensive coverage? You would expect everything to be covered. But again, just like collision, there's a list of exclusions. And the number one exclusion for sure in comprehensive coverage is collision. So if you have comprehensive coverage, which you will have to have if you have a loan on your vehicle, because the bank will require that you have full coverage, which is actually a misnomer because there's no such thing as full coverage. That's something you'd never buy because it would mean you would be covering everything, and not everything is even capable of being covered for one thing. And if it was, it'd be incredibly expensive. So, anyway, we say full coverage. Typically, what we mean is comprehensive, collision, and liability, and a few other coverages like rental, maybe, and towing, eh, glass breakage. There's lots of things that you could throw into full coverage, but basically we mean collision, comp, and liability. So back to the exclusions for comprehensive. The number one exclusion that's not covered under comprehensive coverage, and remember, comprehensive, that's everything except what's excluded. And there's a pretty good list of exclusions. Number one is collision. Comprehensive covers everything, but it doesn't cover your collision. That's covered under collision. Okay. So, again, if you can just start to understand how an insurance policy works, car insurance is a great teacher. And if you get a quote, you're going to see how much these coverages cost. And if you pay attention, you're going to learn how these coverages work a little bit. And that will help you because that'll be a great foundation for you to understand insurance moving forward in your life. And who knows, you might become a State Farm agent one day, or a New York Life agent, or an independent agent. That's what I would do. If I was going to go into the business again, I would be totally independent. Okay, so back to comprehensive, and I'm going to tell you a story. So, again, a list of exclusions always for every coverage and every policy. It never covers just the thing it says it's going to cover. There's lots of ways that they refuse to pay for coverage. And by the way, act of God is never listed in any exclusion. Acts of God are absolutely covered, things like floods and hurricanes. And when we talk about comprehensive coverage for your car insurance, everything's covered, and that absolutely includes acts of God like hail. We had hail at Lake Livingston State Park about 2 weeks ago, and the hail was actually big enough to dent our car. I have a 2016 Lexus ES350, and it's got dents in it. So I'm going to eventually file a claim with the insurance company. Don't know what they'll do. I mean, there's visible dents. They'll probably try to take the dents out, but that's covered. Okay, that was an act of God. It was a storm. It produced hail. The hail dented my car. My comprehensive coverage is going to pay for that. If I were driving down the road and a deer jumped out in the park and I hit the deer and it destroyed my car, that would be covered. Now, you might think that should be covered under collision, but it's not. Hitting an animal is covered under comprehensive. In fact, when I became a State Farm agent, very first day, I was in a place called Ridgeway, Pennsylvania. If you look at a map of Pennsylvania and you look at the western side of Pennsylvania, you'll see this big green blob right there under Erie, Pennsylvania, and above Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And that big green blob is the Allegheny National Forest. And if you look at, it's like a circle. If you look at 3 o'clock on that forest, you'll see a town called Ridgeway, Pennsylvania. And it's the county seat of Elk County. Anyway, that was where I was a State Farm agent. I was the only State Farm agent in that town. And on day one, when I started that position as State Farm agent in Ridgeway, Pennsylvania, early in the morning, the phone rang. We got a call, and it was a client filing a claim. They totaled their car because they hit an animal. What type of animal do you think they hit? Now remember, this is Elk County, Pennsylvania. In Elk County, I don't know where they got the name, but at some point, somebody got the great idea of bringing in elk. And so there was a nice herd of elk in Elk County, but they were in St. Mary's, which was like 20 miles away. And they did lots of damage. And occasionally people would hit them with their car and it would destroy the vehicle. But that's not what happened on my first day in Ridgeway. We were very rural. There was the Allegheny National Forest, lots and lots of woods. And my first claim, the first claim that was reported on my watch as a State Farm agent, a client totaled their car because they hit an animal. What kind of animal was it? You're welcome to leave your comment in the comments, your guess rather, in the comments. Now I'll tell you what it was. It was a bear. Is that hilarious? My first claim. Now I'm in Houston, Texas. I've been a State Farm agent here for many years. I'm retired now from State Farm, but a bear claim, I mean, that was really a fun story. Okay, so that's a story. Here comes another story. This is a story. I'm going to tell you 2 stories about comprehensive insurance, and then I'm going to be done. And you're going to be on your own to go learn about insurance and bargaining and negotiating. But these 2 stories, just again, I'm hoping you'll get interested in insurance and you'll see the relevance and the value, because you'll never be a good consumer of insurance if you don't understand how the policies work. So again, a story about comprehensive insurance. So have you heard of Hurricane Andrew? Do you remember Hurricane Andrew? I was in Miami when Hurricane Andrew, right after it hit. That was my job. I was a staff adjuster. I did homeowners claims, catastrophes. I went all around the country, and it was a really cool gig. And that was what I did for a job. And I was in uh, Miami. I was actually living in Key Largo, working in Homestead. And I get a call from my wife. It was a Saturday. And she said she was on her way to a Little League game with our 2 sons. And they stopped for donuts at the donut shop. And her minivan, it was a Dodge Caravan, it wouldn't start. So uh, it wouldn't start. So this nice man at the donut shop offered to give her a jump. You know what a jump is, right? When your battery is dead and you jump it with jumper cables. Well, this nice man owned a really nice welding truck. Now, a welding truck is 220 volts, maybe more. I think it's 220 volts. A vehicle is 12 volts. But this nice man decided to plug his 220 volt electricity into my wife's 12 volt system. And immediately smoke started coming out of the dash and nothing worked. So my wife called me kind of freaking out. What do I do? What have I done? What has he done? And truth be told, he melted the entire wiring harness and several components like the stereo and lots of other things in that vehicle. So I told my wife, I remember I was an insurance adjuster working for State Farm. Now I was a fire claims adjuster, not an auto adjuster, but I understood insurance because when you understand insurance, it all starts to make sense. So I'm like, hey, we have comprehensive coverage on that old Dodge Caravan minivan. We have comprehensive coverage. In fact, we had a $50 deductible at the time. Now, our collision coverage, we had a higher deductible because it saved us money. but it didn't save that much money to raise the comprehensive deductible, so we had a low deductible. And I told my wife, it's all good. And we have rental insurance. So guess what, babe? You're going to get to go down to Avis, or it was Enterprise at the time. You're going to get to pick out a vehicle and drive a nice new vehicle for a while they fix the van. She's like, what? And sure enough, absolutely, that's covered under comprehensive, because here's why it's covered. Now, you may say, wait, how could that be covered? The reason it's covered is because, remember, the insuring agreement says comprehensive. Basically, it says everything's covered. Unless what? Unless it's excluded. Well, having a welding truck melt your wiring harness is not an exclusion. It's not a listed exclusion. And when an insurance policy like comprehensive on your car, or special coverage on your home, coverage A, gets the same type of coverage, like everything's covered if you have the right policy, unless it's excluded. So again, it wasn't excluded, it was covered, they paid for everything. So that's story number one. The welding truck and the minivan. They paid for everything. My wife got to rent a vehicle. We got to rent a vehicle. We had it for a good long time because it took a while for the dealer to fix everything that got melted in that experience. That's story number one on comprehensive. Now, here's a story that's kind of fun. It's with my buddy Vince. We called him Vinny. He's the guy who was a claim superintendent at State Farm. For many years, I was an auto mechanic, and he and I were friends. Our families were friends. We went camping together and hunting and fishing. He's a great guy. And he was my friend, and he was a claims superintendent at State Farm. And I had just started working as a claims adjuster. That's what brought us to Houston. In 1989, I moved to Houston so that I could work for State Farm as a fire claims adjuster. So I was in training, learning about insurance while we were on this trip. And what happened was we were on a trip, and Vinny was driving his Suburban. It was a brand new Suburban. And we were cruising down the road. We stopped because my little guy Brandon, if you're watching, Brandon, you remember the story. Brandon, he had to go to the bathroom, and he was a little guy, and if he didn't go to the bathroom pretty quick, well, he'd have an accident. So we stopped, and when we stopped, we got a big gulp. A big gulp, a big huge drink. Vinny had himself a big gulp. He's driving his Suburban. It's got a console. You know what a console is. The shifter is in between the seats. Or anyway, so he reaches down to the cup holder to get his big gulp to take a drink. And when he does, we're doing 70 miles an hour down the interstate. And when he reaches for his drink, what happens is he bumps the shifter and he goes from drive into reverse. Now, I don't know if you've ever tried that. If you haven't, don't. But if you ever happen to see a vehicle go from drive to reverse while it's moving forward, especially if you're doing 70 miles an hour, well, it's going to shell the transmission. It's going to destroy the transmission. And that's exactly what happened to the Suburban. At that moment, the transmission stopped working. So he had to get it towed. He had it took it to the dealer. He got a quote, and he called me up because, remember, I was a master mechanic. That's how I paid for college. I knew about vehicles. And he calls me up and he says, hey, they want, I think it was $2,500 to replace or rebuild the transmission. And he's like, is that a good deal? Should I get another estimate, another quote? I'm like, wow, that is a lot. It's because you took it to the dealer, but it's a new vehicle, so that's where you want to take it. But then I said, Vinny, let me ask you this. Did you file a claim? He's like, Hunchback, what are you talking about? That's not covered. It was an accident. I did it. He's like, I'm the one that put it in reverse. That's not covered. I'm like, Vinny, have you looked at your policy lately? You have comprehensive, right? Yes, I have comprehensive. Well, have you looked at your policy? Do you know what comprehensive covers? I said, comprehensive covers everything unless it's excluded. And guess what? Big gulp reaching for your shifter, putting it in reverse while you're driving, that's not a listed exclusion. So he's like, you're crazy. I'm like, give it a try. Call your agent, see if I'm wrong. So he did. I was right. He got paid the entire amount. So then you would think Vinny would call me up and take me out to dinner. Hey, Vinny, if you're watching, it's not too late. So he never did take me out. No, he did. I'm sure he did. He gave me tons and tons of white bass that he caught in Lake Buchanan, and we had great time cooking them and feasting on them. But my point is, he would not have known, and he was a claim superintendent for State Farm, and he didn't connect the dots. I mean, it's a very simple thing to connect the dots, but if you don't think about it, if you don't think about what is this coverage and how does it work, you're never going to get to take advantage of it. And that's what I'm hoping that you'll start to do as a result of these stories and this lesson. Look, there's so much about insurance that I'd love to share and teach you, but we just don't have time. But hopefully your experience this week as you get an auto quote will be helpful for you to start to think about how insurance works so that you can become an informed consumer when it comes to insurance, because you're going to spend a lot of money on insurance in your lifetime. So that's today's lesson. And it's 11 a.m. on the dot, and I'm going to go ahead and hit the finish button, and I'll see you next time. If you have questions, hit me up, but start with GroupMe, and I'll be grading your papers later today.